The Aji Network Top 1% Mission Focused Course for Sales. Top 1% Selling Overview. A Top 1% Skill, 100 plus Strategic Distinctions. The talk you're about to see was produced by the Aji Network for one of its 4 mission-focused offers. The Aji Network is a business education company. We've been helping ambitious business people earn top 1% annual incomes between $400,000 and $4 million for more than 30 years. Why is it important to earn top 1% incomes? Because this is the real amount of income people need to earn in order to live a good life during adulthood and save enough money to continue to live a good life during 25 years or more of unemployment or old age. The actual amount you may need to earn depends upon your age and current savings. When business people earn incomes of $400,000 to $4 million, they're able to avoid the suffering, chronic stress, and shortened lifespans caused by running out of money before they die. Put another way, only these incomes enable business people to afford the goods and services everyone requires every day of their life, regardless of their age. It enables them to take satisfactory care of their most fundamental human concerns, such as housing, healthcare, food, transportation, medical care, family visits, and play. The Aji Network's top 1% focus isn't about greed, fame, or expensive toys. It's about survival. Our focus on enabling business people to produce top 1% incomes with our strategic knowledge is practical and strategic, rather than political, greedy, or immature. It's about having enough money to survive, be free, and live a good life during adulthood and 25 plus years of unemployment during your old age. The simple addition of the cost of goods and services required to take care of fundamental and essential human concerns leads people to this conclusion. Even if it's not politically correct to say so, the numbers add up as they do, and the math plays no politics. This talk is one of more than 30 top 1% recorded talks available in the Aji Network's mission-focused offers. Mission-focused offers are 4 courses designed to help executives and business owners, managers, salespeople, individual contributors. Each mission-focused course is available online and consists of 6 or 12 4-week sessions. Each session contains at least 1 recorded talk and 2 to 4 essays from our top 1% strategic offers. The purpose of each online course, which can be accessed from anywhere in the world, is to enable participants to think and act effectively, strategically, and competitively enough to fulfill new and challenging business missions as well as personal financial ambitions in the most rapidly changing, technologically advanced, and competitive global marketplace in human history. The talk you're about to see is an excerpt from a larger talk in which Toby Hecht, founder and CEO of the Aji Network, presents an overview of top 1% selling. The original talk was presented to ambitious business people seeking to produce incomes between $400,000 and $4 million who reported that it was unlike any sales overview they had ever seen before. The skills and more than 100 distinctions Mr. Hecht presents are significantly more complex and strategic than usual sales training, and they're required for earning a living in today's marketplace. The focus of the talk is helping ambitious business people learn how to design sales conversations that establish trustworthiness, value, authority, and leadership effectively, strategically, and competitively enough to fulfill their most challenging business missions and their personal financial ambitions. Business people rely on their common sense, common sales skills, and common networks when they sell because they are unable to design their own fresh new sales conversations, find themselves stuck in their careers without opportunities to increase their incomes, priced rather than valued, and with incomes that are too low given their expected lifespans. Ambitious business people have absolutely no hope of fulfilling their intentions to produce top 1% annual incomes if their sales skills are anything other than superior or expert. Selling is arguably the most highly competitive set of skills or tactics in the global marketplace because it is so fundamental, strategic, and essential for every business person in business, and the results are so easy for managers to measure. The standards for selling effectively, strategically, and competitively enough to earn a living have increased because ambitious business people find themselves working in the most rapidly changing, complex, technologically sophisticated, and competitive global marketplace in human history. Common sales skills people learn on the job, from a book, or from common sales training define mediocrity. They are stale, lacking in vitality, obsolete, and totally uncompetitive or useless to ambitious business people who intend to produce incomes of $400,000 to $4 million because they evolved in a much slower, less competitive, and local marketplace. That is why the Aji Network offers top 1% selling skills to ambitious business people. Enjoy the talk.
So now I'm in the third part of the introduction, and this is the sales training manual for the common sales training I produced after my second business, where I told you I was like telling people like I had some fame and they said, all I want is this, right? When we get to it, when we start to work on it, what's going to appear, depending on your role at the moment or what role you go into, is that you business owners, sales managers, executives, you'll be selling pure the way I'm talking about. But if you have a sales team or salespeople working for you and you're developing them or teaching them, you won't, this is way too much. But to produce a sales team that is superior to the common sales training, you'll use as much of this as you need to make them that good. And I've put all of this that I'm going to be speaking about when we get into the 10 different parts of the sales conversation, I'm going to follow it along with the sales conversation. So you don't have to, but if you did use this sales training that I did that's complete, you'll be able to take notes in your manual if you have it, because I think many of you do, and you, either for your own development or for your sales team's development, you'll be able to match them. All right? Okay. And when I go through this, I'm going to be using what's up here, and now I'm going to discuss with you, do an overview for background of what's up here, so that when I do go through the sales training and I refer to them, and I may teach more deeply into them at that moment, they will be there like established. For people who are seeing this for the first time, if you show this to somebody, this video, all of what I'm about to go over, we're going to be doing at a very high level, like a review for those of you who've been through things with me to set them, to establish them, but they all require a great deal more study. And I mean, some of you in the room have been through different courses with us or programs, so you'll know something more or different of these to different depths, but you can revisit them or learn them as you see you need to. If I work with business owners, this is the starting position. You'll see this is going to cascade. So we'll start at one, and if you can meet that one, we'll go down. So the first thing is, before you leave, to sketch out the structure, like a pro forma structure, that is an income statement to go into the future, of $500 an hour. That is, what do you have to sell? How much of what do you have to sell in order to earn $500 an hour? All right, now at 2,000 hours a year, that would be how much? $1 million flat, right? Many of you, that is what you need to do. Now, if you're already earning $1 million, you go to $1,000 an hour, and if you're already earning $2 million, go to $1,500 an hour, and go right up to $4 million. After $4 million, I don't have an offer for you. And I don't mean that like funny. I mean like, if you're going to go more than $4 million a year, I don't have any claim to know how that is done. Like, I'm going to teach you like an authority, so that we go from there. All right? But the minimum is $500 an hour. And what you do as we work is you need to sketch out the space of possibilities it is, because that's where it throws you. That is, $500 an hour is $500 an hour for 8 hours in a day, which is $4,000 a day. And then times 5 days in a week. Right. So you can build from $500 an hour out to like, oh, whatever is relevant for whatever you sell or however you work. If it's an hourly thing, you start at $500. If it's a daily thing, you go to your daily. If it's your weekly, you go to your weekly. And if it's a mix, which is more likely the case from all of you, you do that. Now, when you do the structure, it doesn't tell you how to do it. I'm not asking you to determine how to make $500 an hour. I'm asking you to determine what you must do in order to do it. So let's say you sell something and you make $500 if you sell it. Well, then you go, oh, well, I make $500 every time I sell this. Then you have to sell one every hour. Good. That's what I'm after. Good. Now, then what you'll be after is, how the hell do I do that? You find that's what we're working on, but we can't work on that until you understand what you got to do. So first challenge is $500 an hour. Got that? Where you work, where you're currently working, what would you have to do? First challenge. Got that? Many of you are going to come back and say, can't be done. I already know that. So the second challenge is, if you go $500 an hour and you go, I see what I have to do to produce $500 an hour, it just can't be done where I am. Second challenge is, why not? Very important. You go, why can't it be done where I'm working? Because you wouldn't know where to go next to fix it if you don't know what's broken. Got that? So if you can't earn $500 an hour after you get the structure out and you go, it can't be done, then my question is, why not? And there's 4 answers to it that I'm looking for. If you can't do it where you're working, what are the constraints on you that you can't be done? What are the compromises you're forced to make that can't be done? What are the obligations you have to fulfill, the duties you have that prevent you from earning $500 an hour? Because if your duties don't pay $500 an hour and you're obligated to do those duties where you work, you'll never make $500 an hour. And what are the relationships you've got to be in where they won't pay you $500 an hour? For those 4 things. If you can't do it, what are the constraints, compromises, obligations, and relationships that prevent you, where you're currently working, from making $500 an hour or $1,000 an hour or whatever? If I was working with business owners in the room, first question to you, where's your pro forma $500 an hour or $1,000 or $1,500, whatever it needs to be? Where's your pro forma about what's required of your business? You got to know what's required before you can invent how to do it. Remember, no magic. Did everybody follow that one? You got to figure out what needs to be done before you can figure out how to do it. Okay? Now, if you already know what's required, or it's simple for you to figure out $500 an hour, and you have no problem figuring out what's preventing you, what those constraints, compromises, obligations, and relationships are, then the third challenge is, what do you got to do to fix that? And what you will discover then is you'll be thrown into human, career, and business concerns. All your answers will be, oh, I got to take care of this concern better. I've got to do that one better. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. You'll get to human, career, and business concerns. That's where that will throw you. All right, now, remember, you don't need to do all those 3 challenges. If the only one you're up to is figuring out what do you got to do to produce $500 an hour, that's your challenge. If you can figure out what I got to do $500 an hour pretty easily, or whatever your number is, then it is, what are your interpretations about why you can't, if you can't, right? And if you got that one easy, then what do you got to do to fix that? And one of them will be the selling. Okay? That's business owners, bam. All right. Background now. Just an orientation to the background. Over here first. All right, major big deal. Now, one of the toughest things to get across to people is this thing. Now, you've all seen me do it here. That's about 1% of the board. I've done it in front of you many times, yeah? All right. So I put this here to clear, like, a different way. This is the 1% of the whole page. You got it? I mean, it is 1% of it. And this is 1/10, and this is where 99% of the working population earns their money, in the bottom 99%. And all this other territory, not the words, all this other room is what the top 1% earn. Like, I got to kind of get that straight. This percent of the population of that box earns all this money, and this percentage of the population earns that much money, right? The bottom this 99% earns less than $400,000, right? And this percentage of the population earns $400,000 up to $5 billion. Okay, now, that's not just an interesting statistic or a pretty diagram. The hard part is to get that it's not an accident. It's not a mistake. I think most people understand, if they hit a golf ball, that when you swing the club and the ball goes, you hit it. It goes where you hit it. All right? And if you're trying to be in the top 1% of golfers, you got to keep paying attention to how you're hitting the ball, because you hit it and it went there. Now, sometimes the wind is blowing or it's raining and you hit the ball and the wind takes it. But it's your job, even if you didn't cause the wind, to deal with the wind, if you're the professional golfer. We follow all that? Well, I talk to people, and they think it's an accident that they're earning below $400,000, instead of everything they're doing makes sure they do earn less than $400,000. I don't know how to get it across. It's mechanical. If you make common offers, practices, narratives, and strategies, if you work as a Lone Ranger, you don't have a network, if you don't have autonomies, if you can't produce highly valued accomplishments, if you're not superior in your leadership, you can't build a business organization, and you can't anticipate future threats, obligations, and opportunities, bump, there you will be, because people will treat your value with indifference. They will price you down, and you can't make enough transactions no matter what you do to get in the top 1%. Over and out. It's one of the most difficult things to have people get, that they are causing their low income, but with their hard work. Their common sense is the cause of the 99%. Their common business knowledge is it. And people are still walking around saying to themselves, because I think we watch too much television, like, work is so hard. It's so hard to make a lot of money, right? And I don't want to work till I'm 70. And I can't live the way I want to live. And like, there's something wrong with this program. Like, the world hasn't organized around me properly. Did somebody not know it was me who showed up? I mean, this is not the way it's supposed to be. And it doesn't come to them that they're working every day to make sure that that happens. So the very first thing I said earlier is you've got to quit, get rid of thinking and acting the way that triggers mechanisms with people that they treat you with indifference to value. All right? So with golf, people do understand that to get the prize money, if you're a golfer, you got to have a good swing, right? Well, in business, it isn't the golf swing, it's the offers. You got to be really good with the offers. You got to sell them, and you got to produce them, right? And if somebody else is producing them and you're selling them, you won't make any money, right? You don't have autonomy, constraints, compromises, obligations, relationships. If you can produce them, right? You can be an employee and make top 1%, but you have to produce them and you have to be able to sell them. Sales conversations are about help. Okay. Help with what? That's your question, right? Now, in the bottom 99%, the help is with tasks. People say, oh, I need this, I need that, this, that, whatever they're doing, right? It could be an individual or a business person, it doesn't matter, but it'll be all a common salesperson can do is the task. And now, some common salespeople will take issue with me and they'll go, oh, no, I know business, and I've been doing this for a long time, and either they know common business or they know jargon, cliches, metaphors, catchwords. They'll talk about profits, for instance. But when they talk about profits, it's not the same as a business owner talking about profits who does the work to bring in the revenues and cuts their costs and manages their expensive. And they're using like an utterance, and they're hoping that it will fool somebody who knows what they're doing into thinking they know what they're talking about because they use the word. Has everybody got that? But they couldn't produce a profit to save their life literally. All right, so no arrogance there. Everybody all right with that? All right. In the top 1%, you work with people's ambitions, intentions, or commitments. If they don't have them, you can't. Right? You won't be able to sell to them. Now, one of the differences we'll get to this afternoon when we work on selling is that the bottom 99% checks to see what they got, if they can even think this. The top 1% produces this when it isn't there. You've got to be able to produce ambitions, intentions, and commitments with people you're speaking with, and do it really easily. I mean, like, effortlessly. All right? Now, there are 3 sets of fundamental orientations in business that top 1%ers are always speaking to. Always, all 3 of them at the same time, but the focus can be on one or the other. The highest level is that whoever you're talking to wants to be successful at whatever they're doing. And always, from a biological perspective, that will always be taking care of their survival, being free, and living a good life. Now, here's the deal. Success is defined by people's intentions. There is no such abstract thing as a success. Success is whatever you intend to do. Success is doing that. So if people's intentions are too low, success is losing. Like, I'm working really hard to make 10% more next year. Good. And if you do it, you still lose, right? And as you will see, as you move up the chain with you sell, these will make more sense. There's a lot of nonsense in the bottom 99% about what success is, because most of them are working to succeed at something that will make sure they fail at the end. Okay. Survival, pretty clear. Okay. Freedom is necessary for survival. The second question I asked you in your challenge about constraints, compromises, obligations, and relationships, those are lack of freedom. Freedom's required to be in the top 1%. If you're not free because you're constrained, right, you're forced to make compromises, you're forced to fulfill obligations, you're forced to be in relationships with people who can't, have no intention to pay $500 an hour, no freedom. You've got to get free. All right, everybody? Living a good life is taking satisfactory care of all of your human concerns for your whole life. Right? If you don't know what your human concerns are, we teach 13 of them in here. They are over on the far wall. You know them, or you can go look at them. Got that? So everybody's ultimate ambition is to succeed with whatever their intentions are, to survive their whole life, to be free their whole life, and to live a good life their whole life. Got it. So now there's different specific ways of talking about it, but that's it. Their action plans in the top 1% are always going to be to produce a competitive advantage. There's nobody who's in business who isn't looking to have whatever they need to have to offer so that their offers, practices, narratives, and strategies are accepted, and their competition's is not. All right? Everybody in the marketplace is going competitive advantage. Now, in the bottom 99%, you see people think they don't need one because they are it. You understand that kind of conceit and that kind of hubris is all like, those people will be, like many of you are still working with them and you need to stop working with them. But you have to work your way out of it. So superior value, and value always begins with importance, utility, and worth together. Well, I'm not going to teach it now, but it's that. So when, in the background, you're talking about superior value, you're talking about value that is more important in terms of the consequences it produces, more useful as a practical matter in what fulfilling their intentions, and more worthwhile in terms of producing a return for the costs that it costs to buy from you. Did everybody follow that one? Right? So always when you're selling in the top 1%, you're selling competitive advantages, superior value, and that they're looking to produce top 1% annual incomes. Right? Prices, lifespans, how the stock market moves, inflation, all drive everybody to what is top 1% today. This won't be top 1% forever, you all know. I mean, it's days as the big deal are over because the more and more we see people go off the cliff because they can't live on less than that, the more people go, well, of course I have to earn that amount. So now, looking backwards, it goes like, well, that's really big. Looking forward, it looks like enough. The tactical focus, what they're paying attention to, is a steady stream of new offers, practices, narratives, and strategies. It is the way the mechanism works because competitive pressures and marketplace drifts make all existing offers, practices, narratives, and strategies common and obsolete over time. So any aggressive business person is always producing a steady stream of those. People go, how many? Every 15 minutes. It's not that hard. It's not the big idea that's in the news. That's for chumps. The way businesses work is a marathon. Like 26 miles, step by step, and every step is a new offer, practice, narrative, and strategy. Continuous improvement, never-ending. Breakthroughs happen, they don't happen, never-ending improvement. Right? We'll come back to this one. This is for now. Reality is operation. There's no magic. It's natural laws, forces, principles, laws, and mechanisms. Right? Why is that important? That's authority. Cause and effect. When you know science, when you know mechanism, when you know math, when you know economics, right? When you know production, it's causes and their effects. Forces, there's only 4 in the whole universe that you have to know. Gravity, electromagnetism, and the strong and weak nuclear forces. They give rise to everything we see. There's nothing that any scientist has ever found that doesn't connect to those 4. Right? They establish it. Now, principles are a way of explaining how these forces work in large, complicated systems. They're called principles, like the principle of marginal utility. Sure, there are people who highly value common things. They do exist. They're not very rich people, but they do. And there are people who don't value scarce things. They don't do well either. But the principle holds. So in the marketplace, odds are that's the way it will work, and you will find plenty of exceptions. That's part of the rule, too. Laws say what is required, forbidden, and allowed like authority. This will happen if you do that. That won't happen if you do that. This may happen if you do that. That's less complex than a principle, but it's still big. And you can say, oh, these are the laws. It's going to work this way. And mechanism describes simple cause and effect, like a light switch. When you know these, you can get authority with people. When you don't, you can't. The other source of authority is your commitment. If you don't do that, I'm walking. And when you say that and the person listens, goes, you are going to do that. That's authority. All right? Design of an offer. We're only working with the foreground in this conference. Right? There's a midground and a background. But for when we're selling, we work on these 7. It's a litany. When you're working with people, you're always going to address their concerns. And of course, the concerns are up over there. There's 13 human concerns, 12 career concerns, and 22 business concerns. They need to be memorized. You're going to be working with people all the time. That's what you need to know. So always, what a concern is for the sake of what somebody is acting. So if you say, what is a concern to somebody, what is your concern? That is why, whatever the reason is for acting is their concern. All right? Or the other way is, this is what you need to be concerned about, because if you don't do this, there'll be a certain kind of breakdown that'll happen. Right? Revenue is a concern, so people are acting to produce revenue. Breakdowns are interruptions in taking care of concerns. So one of the things you offer help for is taking care of concerns, and the other is removing breakdowns, helping deal with them. Where's the interruption here? Where's the stop? Why can't you take care of your revenue production? I'll help you with that. That's the breakdown. Horizons of time. You're going to see there's horizons of time, amounts of time, start times, start and end times, coordination times, where you have an intersection, and you'll see that time is endless with people. As a fundamental concern of your offers, is like people like the $500 an hour for $1 million a year. You really have to crank out $500 an hour to produce that. Right? So there is no casualness about this. The mood of urgency is part of the top 1%. When some of you are moving around going, oh, I'll get to it later. Oh, I was going to talk to this person about my network of help, but it really wasn't convenient, so I thought I'd wait for a lunch that's going to happen in 2 weeks. Some of you guys do that? It produces the wrong communication to who you're going to talk to. You follow that one? Your lack of urgency means you're not in the top 1%. People in the top 1% understand space is a possibility. It's got to get done in this time, or I'm not going to get there. And when you're helping in the top 1%, your mood of urgency is part of the deal. It shows people like, oh, you understand this got to get done now. And then there's velocity. Velocity comes from your mood of urgency, which is how quickly you move. You got to move fast. Right? Taking your time is like not top 1%. In the top 1%, things got to get done. You don't crank out $500 an hour by sitting around being cool. You follow? Okay. Criterion standards of value. They're always changing. Importance, utility, and worth keep increasing as the global marketplace moves along. Right? And importance, consequences, utility, worth are always focused on threats, obligations, and opportunities. So people are going, well, what? The threats change, the obligations change, the opportunities change. We're working this one. All right? Always they have already existing commitments. You help them with that. Right? Sometimes you push them away. Sometimes you compete against them. But most of the time they're in commitments, and they're always in commitments, because that's humans. We're always in commitments, and you help them with that. And the more you know about business, the more you know what commitments they have to be. I mean, in the top 1%, you teach people as much as you sell to them, right? Now, they always have standard practices. There are always certain ways they're already doing things, and they're in their bodies, in their businesses, in their life, You either change it or you don't, but you help them with their standard practices, you improve their standard practices, you replace their standard practices, you hybrid their standard practices, but always they are doing things, so you always help them with that. And you're always finding out what the competitive, when you're selling, right? When you're selling, before you present the new one, you'll always find out what the competitive offers, practices, narratives, and strategies are that they're accepting, working with, considering, like that. Now, on both sides, underneath these two, is the Aji Source fundamental strategy. It's fundamental. You will be, from now on, in the top 1% to sell strategically. There's, inside the sales conversation is a strategy. It's an action plan. Marketing, prospecting, greed, like that. That's that. But this is used in a strategy here, so that your strategy is always going to match their strategy, because fundamentally it can't be any different, which means the more you learn about your strategy to produce the incomes you're after, the more you're actually learning about how to sell to that strategy. Does that follow? So In some cases, I teach you this is your strategy, and in this moment, your strategy is also their strategy. So to the extent you master your own strategic actions and deepen what you're doing strategically, you're going to understand more and more what your customers must be doing, what your employers must be doing, what your employees and colleagues must be doing, because mechanics says it must be this way. Is that all right with everybody? All right. So they either will, your prospects either will have ambitions or you produce them for them. Ambitions are commitments to the future. Now, many of you are going to find that where you're currently selling, the people either don't have the education or the intellect, or they've got their cultural, psychological issues where they're self-important, and they won't have any ambition. They think it's all going to work out. We hear that all the time in the business, right? It's just going to work out. You can't sell to them. You understand? This is not magic. Somebody says, I'm cool. Yeah, I know I only have 100,000 saved up, or I have 500,000 saved up. I'm cool. It's like, no, you're not. Oh, yes, I am. You're done. Cooked. You understand? You're done. Over and out. So, philosophies of care and power, I'm not going to teach all that now, but we are in the middle of it, like what are the concerns and how do you compete? We're working on it. Accumulating strategic knowledge and power, that's a capability. The more you learn, the more you can offer to your customers. I mean, the amount I have sold, and I don't mean in here with you, but making the money I have made has always been that when I'm working with customers to help them, I don't like here I'm in a formal position of teaching to you, but I can just kind of talk with somebody and they don't know who I am and what I'm talking about. And next thing they're going, that's really good. What about that? And I am sought after because I know what I'm doing. I have the strategic knowledge to go, this has to happen like that. And it's only focused on, I had the computer business and it goes like that. And they would go, I never thought of that. That was great. That just made the computer more valuable. That's my game. Right? That's why people pay me. That's why they like me. The practice ethics of power. We've had many breakdowns in here over the last 25 years with ethics of power. Some of you pay money here, and then there's other ways that you can make money here, and some of you come and thank me, right? But you don't pay me. And I'm okay with that. Until the breakdown inevitably happens, and then because you never paid, right, I just cut it out, and you don't get the value anymore. And people are disappointed in their glum. That's been going on, like not with you specifically, but for 25 years. And people go, well, how shall I have handled that? And I go, well, you should have paid me, because when the breakdown really happened and you didn't pay me anything, I had nothing to lose except the cost. And then people say, how much should I pay you? Right? You should pay me exactly the amount that you're willing to pay, and be okay if you lose the opportunity if you don't pay it. The top 1%'s got to value. One of their ethics of power is to value things. The thing is, you don't value by pricing it in the grocery store. You value by going, well, what could I do with it, and what am I willing to pay for it? And that's all I'm willing to pay. And if I'm willing to pay that amount and I don't get it, that's okay. But if you don't offer to pay anything and you're not willing to pay anything and you lose the opportunity, you're sunk. You got it? So you got to be willing to pay. All right. Now, produce new offers and make money. All the businesses you're selling to, all the people you're selling to, they need to make money, and every way you can help them produce better offers, practices, narratives, and strategies, right? Every way you can help them, that will be in the game for them. I need better offers, better practice, narratives, and strategies. Yep. Now, you're going to find out in the top 1% that one of the reasons salespeople can't function well is because they have no network. Salespeople don't have a network. Now, sometimes they work inside of a network, but it isn't theirs. It's owned by somebody else. It's produced by somebody else. It's paid for by somebody else. So the profits go to the owner, not to the salesperson. If you're going to be in the top 1%, you must build your own configuration, whether you're a business owner or an executive or a manager, that's yours, not anybody else's, right? Because when you sell to customers, they go, well, and what we're going to come to is that always with customers, you're building their judgment about you, your trustworthiness, your value, and your authority in that field. And you won't have much trustworthiness, value, or authority if it's just you, because you're easily beaten by two. Two people are more trustworthy, more valuable, and have more authority. They know what's forbidden, and they can get it done than any one of you. You follow? Right? So any one of you who's buying anything risky that's important to you, you'd much rather have a big network that can take care of it and provide it and keep the promise than some lone individual. So at the bottom, 99%, their ethics are lousy. They don't pay people money. You're going to have to pay your networks one way or another. I mean, there's different ways of paying people, but you don't pay, they don't show up. You don't get good ones. And the other side of that is when you're selling in the top 1%, you become part of somebody else's network that yourself. You become part of their network of transaction, discursive support, tactical support, right? Collegial support, professional help. You become part of that. Of course, if your knowledge is common, they can find it anywhere and you won't join their network. You'll just be useful. If you're offering to join their network, you got to know some stuff where they go, I'm going to keep buying from you, which drops your costs and makes them willing to pay you a higher premium. Right? You're just regular Joe Schmo, you'll compete with the rest. Very useful, not paid. Okay? That's strategy here, yeah? You must increase your autonomies, and that's what you do when you sell. The better you are at selling, the more freedom your customers, employers, employees, and colleagues have. When you keep your commitments and people, the customers, employers don't have to worry about you, they are free to go off. If they have to worry about you, they're constrained, right? By your lack of trustworthiness, value, authority. So you be impeccable there, and part of that is your organization and your network. Got it? Good. Now, the aim for every transaction in the top 1%, when you're selling in the top 1%, is highly valued accomplishments. Everything you sell when you're in the top 1% is aimed that what you do when you transact with somebody and they make a transaction with you, what they get is a highly valued transaction, not a commonly valued one. Common ones are not scarce relative to demand. They're everywhere. They're priced down. Highly valued ones are scarce relative to demand because they are uncommon, they are strategic, and they are superior to common offers, practices, narratives, and strategies. Now, earlier I spoke to you about knowing things, and that when you know things like riding a bicycle, it's hard not to get to the place where you forgot. When you understand that anything other than a highly valued accomplishment, any common one will defeat your intentions to earn enough money, when you know that one, right, all you produce is highly valued accomplishments, and nobody's never, ever going to ask you to produce them. Once I knew, and I learned it when I was 18, I took economics, kicking and screaming. I did my year of economics at Tulane University, right? Didn't want anything to do with it. I liked it, though. It was really cool stuff. And I learned the principle of marginal utility. And they said anything common triggers indifference to value, causes pricing, and as we would know, bottom 99% incomes, right? I went, oh, I didn't know I got it. I didn't feel any different. It just meant I never, again, ever, when I was doing business, ever would do anything common, ever. So you didn't ask me to do this talk today and for the next couple of days, right? Nobody sent me a request saying, would you please do a highly valued accomplishment that isn't found elsewhere in the marketplace, that's uncommon, strategic, and superior because it's more important, useful, and worthwhile. Nobody sent me a note, right? And if you show up and I did it, you go, great, Tobe, thanks, you're worth it. And if I didn't, you go, I'll find somebody else. It's up to me. It's up to you. You got to know what highly valued accomplishments are, and they are always common offers, because those are fundamental, with marginal utility to them. All right? And the marginal utilities have to be really important, useful, and worthwhile. All right? And every transaction you make, everyone has got to be that. Now, if you have a sales team, they won't do that. They won't do that. You will do that as the business owner or the executive manager. Whatever you sell does that, and you make it easy for the salespeople to sell, but you don't pay them top 1% incomes. All right, so if you're a business owner and here you go, oh yeah, but we can't do that. Yeah, what you sell is that, and highly valued accomplishments, I'm only talking about selling here, but they also exist in the back shop in production. I mean, they can exist in multiple places, the highly valued accomplishments, but they will appear when you sell in different ways. So if you're selling markers, right, the regular old common marker, and that's what you sell, I mean, because it was there, it was there, you got what I mean, like it was there, okay, cool. Then your highly valued accomplishment may be in the background as you manufacture them or distribute them, and what you sell is lower price. You got it? It doesn't necessarily be seen by the customer, but everything in the whole production is highly valued, scarce. So we're going to hit number 8 there over and over and over again. Number 9 is establishing identities of superior trustworthiness and value, and those are always based on highly valued accomplishments. You produce those, customers remember you. You don't, they don't. right? If you're salespeople, common salespeople, and you teach them well, they won't remember the salesperson. They'll remember you, the business. Highly compensated leadership roles. You got to get rid of the idea that common leadership is a cool thing. It's like people are dissatisfied. Oh, I'm a leader. I'm mad. I don't know, whatever you are. It's like, okay, good. Highly compensated leadership roles. Leadership is two things. Two. One, you have to know the situation better than anybody else to be a leader. Right? So when you're walking down the street and somebody pulls up in their car and rolls down their window and says, can you help me get to the gas station or the bank? They're turning you into a leader because they go, you know the situation where the streets are and the banks are, and I don't. So would you please tell me? If you know the situation, the second part of leadership is the request of coordinated action to fulfill an intention. And you go, yes, I know where the gas station is. Go down there, turn right, turn left, and there you'll see it. Right? Common leadership. Highly compensated leaders know situations better, right? They know them in ways that's scarce relative to demand. They know the threats, they know the obligations, they know the opportunities in every situation they're leading in better than anybody else, and they know what requests to make to coordinate action to produce intended outcomes. So when you're selling, you take a leadership role in the top 1% with who you're selling to, and you go, look, here's what's required, here's what's forbidden, here's what's allowed, because I know this situation, and these are the requests, and this is what you got to do, and you got to buy the product or service to do that. They go, oh, got it. So you lead in the top 1%. You build powerful or superior business organizations. So what people are looking for is trustworthiness, value, and authority. And authority is organization. That is, authority is people who know what's required, forbidden, and allowed, and can do it. I don't mean intellectually do it. They know, like, if somebody builds an enormous 100-story building, do they not? And it stands up. Do they not have the authority to know what was required, forbidden, allowed to produce it? Right? Your accomplishments prove your authority. Without the accomplishments, you have none. All right? And since competitive pressures and marketplace drifts always make current offers common and obsolete, you've got to be able to anticipate future threats, obligations, and opportunities before they're obvious to your customers or competitors. All right? And that's what you sell. It isn't just in your background that you know. It's you talk to your customers or your employers or your employees or your colleagues about, look, guys, this is what we got to do. Here's why. And you run through that. And they go, boy, that was great. I'll work with you. You know what you're doing. You have the narrative instead of the task.
Thank you for watching this excerpted talk. Need help in fulfilling your business mission and personal ambitions? Would you like to learn how we could be of value to you? Please call or email us, 408-730-2234. request@theajinetwork.com. We can answer your questions or make recommendations to help you and your organization learn the strategic knowledge that is now required to compete successfully in today's rapidly changing, technologically advanced, and competitive global marketplace. We can also help you invite people in your network, colleagues, employers, employees, or customers, to participate with you in the Aji Network's mission-focused offers so their value to your network increases. The Aji Network helps ambitious business people gain the top 1% strategic knowledge they need to earn a living in the most competitive, rapidly changing, complex, and technologically advanced global marketplace in human history. To earn a living today requires people to make enough money to live a good life during adulthood while raising a family, and save enough money to continue living a good life during their old age. This requires most business people to learn how to produce annual incomes between $400,000 and $4 million. The exact amount depends on one's age and current savings. The Aji Network's 4 mission-focused offers help ambitious business people think and act effectively, strategically, and competitively enough to fulfill new and challenging business missions as well as their personal financial ambitions. The mission-focused offers are offered online, which means people can work with the material by themselves and with others anywhere in the world. The Aji Network also offers 4 strategic offers. Our strategic offers help ambitious business people fulfill their career, financial, and business ambitions, which usually requires they earn incomes between $400,000 and $4 million, depending upon their age and current savings. Please give us a call.